Fitz presents Fun with Writing. I'm John Hadaway. Alright, welcome back. Today we are going to talk about three things. The first is the logic of language, and specifically and, but, and, or are three conjunctions. The second that we're going to talk about is to comma or not to comma, which is basically my chart that indicates when you should be using a comma as opposed to not using a comma. And the third is the debate between the Oxford comma and the AP comma use, where I basically give you a brief overview of my argument for always using the Oxford comma. So let's get started with the logic of language and, but, and, or, and we'll move forward. I've got up on the board here is logic of language and then and, but, and, or. And believe it or not, when we can compare these to math symbols. And I don't know if this comparing to math symbols is going to help you understand their use, but their use is specific to various types of logical notation or math symbols. And specifically, if we give and its counterpart, then this is plus or the plus symbol, okay? So anytime we use and, then we're saying both sides of and are equal. So and is plus this plus that, okay? But has the minus, or we say on the left side of the but is what is true, and on the right side of the but is what is false. So this but not that, or this and not that. In fact, we can look at but as the and not or symbol. The symbol is not plus, okay? So and not. It's literally what but means. And then finally, or is going to either be, and this is where we get confusing a little, but it's either going to be both sides or neither, only one side, okay? So, and what this basically means is that you can have a group of pears, peaches, bananas, okay? And the moment we stick an or in, so we've got pears, peaches, or bananas, then what is true is that we can have pears and not peaches and bananas, or we can have peaches and not pears and bananas, or we can have bananas and not peaches or pears, or we can have any combination of that. So basically what this, in a truth function, true, false, pear, peach, banana, so, and then it goes on and on and on, so it could be true, false, and then it goes out this way so that you then get the combinations of all being true or all being false. Except in this particular case, one has to be true. So it's either and or but. But or gives us both. So or also could be either or neither nor. Okay? So we're either dealing with either or neither nor. So and that's where we get this. So this can be both plus and minus, but this is always plus, this is always minus, and then or gives us a non-static alternative. Okay? So in and, both sides always have to be true. In but, only one side has to be true, and the side that has to be true is always on the left of the but or on the subject side of the but. And then in or, something has to be true, but you have a lot of latitude as to what it could be, and all things could be true to make or a very true statement. Okay? Now, the next thing that we want to do with our logic of language is to look at the to comma or not to comma. So we do create our chart again. To comma not to comma, okay? And then on the vertical rather than the horizontal, so the column side, we've got and, but, and or, and then we create our chart. And in all cases, we're going to stick this up here, and our advice is when in doubt, comma, leave it out, period. Okay, so we're going to come up here, we're going to fill in the chart. It's just going to be check marks or X's, whatever. But always, when in doubt, leave it out. Okay, it doesn't matter to me. There's going to be exceptions to this as well. If a list, leave it in. Okay, so when in doubt, leave it out. If a list, leave it in. Okay, so the comma stays in a list, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But, and, to comma, not to comma. We're on a not to comma, and that's because most of the time, both sides of the and are equal. Okay, so they are equal value. So this side and this side are perfectly equal. And that's not always the case, but we'll deal with exceptions to perfectly equal at some future point if we need to. Okay, but is always 2 comma. And the reason for that is this side is always greater than that side. So the left side or the subject side of the but is always of greater importance, of greater purpose and meaning than the right side or, yeah, the right side of the but, okay? And then finally, or is actually both. It is entirely dependent on use. So if you're using or in the and context, then you don't necessarily need to comma unless you're in a list. Otherwise, if you're using it in the but context, then you add the comma. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So when you're using and in a sentence, and these are conjunctions, should have said that earlier, but we'll fix it now. Okay, so the conjunctions and, but, and or, and, no comma, but, yes comma, or it depends on if you're using the or in the and, or if you're using the or in the but. I should probably come up with a way to reset that. So, it depends, or, it depends, could be either, but it depends on if you're using the or in the and context, or if you're using or in the but context. Okay? And either one, it's up to you. We will figure out ways to help you understand that better, but a good portion of the time, I think the last time I tried to figure it out was like 85 to 90% of the time, this chart is going to tell you how to use commas. You do not have to worry about it any other way, and when in doubt, leave it out. And the reason for this is that when people start to think, oh, maybe there needs to be a comma here, the reality of the comma is that it doesn't need to be there. It's really annoying to have to go in and fix, and you're probably using it wrong. If you're not, then we'll let you know. And then if a list, leave it in, and lists in both and, but, and or are going to be a list of things. So eggs, butter, and bacon. Okay. Girls, boys, comma, but not dogs. Okay, and then the same for down here. Now, okay, same for down here. The last thing we need to talk about is what a lot of people in the world call the Oxford comma. So we've got our logic of language. We're now talking about the Oxford comma. And this is opposed to the AP comma. Okay, so you have Oxford, and then you have AP comma. And this is basically just generic use. So when I'm talking about Oxford comma or the AP comma, I'm talking about the guides and the directions that typically use it. What the Oxford comma says, so we'll bring this down here, is that before the conjunction in a list, comma, use a comma, period. Okay? Alright, so the conjunction. You remember our conjunctions are and, but, or. And then what the AP comma says is drop the comma before the conjunction. Okay? So, you can have a list, and you're offsetting each member of the list by a comma, But according to the Oxford, you're going to comma before the conjunction, and according to AP, you're going to drop the comma before the conjunction. Now, I am an adherent of the Oxford comma, and here's why. First of all, it's right. And so when you read books like Eat, Shoots, and Leaves, or other books on grammar and punctuation use, or just grammar in general, the standard is the comma before the conjunction. That's where I think it should be, and I'm right and the rest of the world's wrong. So, but I don't have to just rely on me being right because we know I'm right, but instead what we can rely on is the U.S. court system. And what recently happened in several court cases is that the defendant, so companies, lost massive court cases because they used the AP form of the comma and not the Oxford comma, which then allowed for the plaintiffs, or the people bringing suit against the companies, to claim that the language within the contract was unclear, and it allowed them to claim more money and more time for their efforts. So what the court said is that the Oxford comma is absolutely necessary for clarity in terms of list and conjunction, and without it, it actually causes confusion. So, as we're going forward, Oxford comma is the comma of use. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you learned something. If any of this isn't really clear, let me know, and I will do my best to clarify it for you. Otherwise, we'll see you next video. Bye, guys.